The words stung like winter frost on bare skin. "I can't believe Joey married into this," Lily said, waving her manicured hand dismissively at my farmhouse kitchen. "It's so quaint, like something out of a country Bumpkin catalogue." I'm Christine, and after 58 years on this earth, I've learned that sometimes the sharpest wounds come from those closest to us. My hands trembled slightly as I continued kneading the bread dough on my worn wooden counter, pretending I hadn't heard my daughter-in-law's latest barb. "Mom makes the best sourdough in 3 counties, Joey said, attempting to diffuse the tension. He stood awkwardly between us, like he always did these days. "Remember that artisanal bakery you love in the city? Mom taught them her technique." Lily rolled her eyes, adjusting her designer blazer. "Honey, that's hardly the same thing. They have proper equipment, hygiene standards." She trailed off, eyeing my flour-dusted apron with disdain. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, despite being the heart of my home for 30 years. Tucker and I had raised our children here, hosted countless family dinners, and created memories that seemed to seep from the very walls. Now, 2 years after his passing, my son's wife was trying to erase it all with her metropolitan superiority. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Elizabeth should be here any minute." As if on cue, the screen door creaked open, and my daughter breezed in, bringing with her the scent of fresh autumn air. "Something smells amazing." She hugged me tight, flour and all. "Hi, Joey. Hi, Lily." Lily merely nodded, tapping away at her phone. "I hope you made something vegetarian. I'm trying this new diet my wellness coach recommended." "There's plenty of vegetables," I assured her, though I'd spent hours preparing Tucker's famous pot roast recipe. "And a quinoa salad." "Mom, you didn't have to," Joey started, but Lily cut him off. "Quinoa? Here?" She laughed, a sharp, artificial sound. Did the local market finally discover food from this century? Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. "Actually, Lily, Mom grows her own. She supplies several high-end restaurants in the city." "How industrious," Lily said, making it sound like a curse. "Though I suppose you have to keep busy out here in the middle of nowhere." The timer dinged, saving me from responding. As I pulled the roast from the oven, memories of Tucker flooded back. He'd always said the secret was in the timing, not the ingredients. "Time reveals everything," he'd tell the kids, in cooking and in life. We settled around the old oak table, the one Tucker had made for our 5th anniversary. Lily immediately pulled out her phone to photograph her plate. For my social media, though I'll have to filter it heavily. The lighting here is so rustic. "Some things don't need filters," Elizabeth said quietly, serving herself some roast. "They're perfect as they are." Joey cleared his throat. "So, Mom, how's the garden coming along? Those heirloom tomatoes you were worried about?" Before I could answer, Lily interjected. "Oh, Joey, nobody cares about tomatoes. Did I tell you about the charity gala I'm organizing? It's going to be the event of the season. All the right people will be there." "The right people?" I couldn't help asking. "You know, people who matter. Not that you'd understand, Christine. It's a different world from all this." She gestured vaguely at my home again. The room fell silent. Even Joey stopped eating, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth. Elizabeth gripped her water glass so tight I feared it might shatter. That's when something in me shifted. Maybe it was the way she dismissed my home, my life's work, or maybe it was the ghost of Tucker whispering about timing. But in that moment, I realized I'd had enough of being the silent, accommodating mother-in-law. "You're right, Lily," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I probably wouldn't understand your world, just like you don't understand mine. But here's the thing about gardens and growing things. They teach you patience. They show you that what's beneath the surface matters more than what's visible at first glance." Lily's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Is that supposed to be some sort of country wisdom?" "No," I replied, standing to clear the plates. "Just an observation. Would anyone like dessert? I made apple pie." "Store-bought crust?" Lily asked with a smirk. "Handmade, actually, like everything else here." I met her gaze steadily. You know what Tucker used to say about pie crust? The secret isn't in the ingredients. It's in knowing when to apply pressure and when to let things rest. As I turned toward the kitchen, I caught Elizabeth hiding a smile behind her napkin. Joey looked torn as usual, but there was something else in his expression. A flash of the boy who used to proudly bring friends home for my cooking. I had spent years letting Lily's comments rest. Maybe it was time to apply a little pressure. The cream-coloured envelope arrived on a Tuesday, its gold embossing catching the morning light. I traced my fingers over the elegant script. The annual Collins Foundation Charity Ball. And smiled, thinking of my father's penchant for understated elegance. "Another piece of junk mail?" Elizabeth asked, walking into my kitchen with 2 steaming cups of coffee. She'd started dropping by more frequently since the tense family dinner last week. "Not exactly." I slid the invitation across the table. "It's from your grandfather." Elizabeth's eyes widened as she read. "The Collins Foundation Ball? Mom, this is huge. Are you going to tell them?" "Tell who what?" I sipped my coffee, playing innocent. "You know exactly what I mean." She gave me her teacher look, the one she usually reserved for unruly third graders. "About Grandpa Walter being, I don't know, only one of the most influential philanthropists in the state?" I set down my cup. "I've managed 58 years without trading on my father's name. Besides, you know why I left that world?" "Yeah, for love. Because Dad was just a farmer and teacher, and Grandpa's friends couldn't handle that." Elizabeth leaned forward. "But Mom, after how Lily treated you at dinner..." The phone rang, interrupting her. Speaking of the devil, it was Joey. "Mom?" His voice sounded strained. "I need your advice. Lily's... well, she's planning this charity event, but it's not going well. The venue cancelled, and now she's..." A crash echoed in the background, followed by Lily's voice. "What do you mean they double-booked? Do you know who I am?" "I should go," Joey said quickly. "Wait." I took a deep breath. "Actually, I might have a solution. Why don't you both come over for coffee this afternoon?" After hanging up, I showed Elizabeth the second envelope that had arrived with my invitation. "Dad always sends me an extra. Says I might find someone worthy to share it with." Elizabeth's eyes sparkled. "Oh, this is going to be good." 4 hours later, Lily swept into my kitchen wearing designer yoga wear and a scowl. "Joey said you might be able to help with my charity crisis, though I can't imagine how." "Would you like some coffee?" I offered. "I just baked scones." "No carbs," she snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, no thank you, about the charity event." "Right," I pulled out the invitation. "I thought you might be interested in this." Lily snatched it up, her expression shifting from disdain to disbelief. "The Collins Foundation Ball? This is impossible to get into. Even I couldn't..." "Wait." She narrowed her eyes. "How did you get this?" "It came in the mail," I said simply. "There must be some mistake." She examined the envelope like it might be counterfeit. "These are only sent to major donors and society families." Joey, who had been quietly watching, spoke up. "Mum, how did you get an invitation?" "I know Walter Collins," I said, watching Lily's face. "We go way back." Lily laughed, that same sharp sound from dinner. "You? Know Walter Collins? The Walter Collins? Right, and I'm the Queen of England." "Mom?" Joey looked confused. I stood up and walked to the cabinet where I kept my photo albums. Pulling out an old picture, I handed it to Joey. It showed a much younger me standing next to Walter Collins at my college graduation. "Is that..." Joey squinted at the photo. "That's Walter Collins," I confirmed. "He's my father." The silence that followed was deafening. Lily's face went through a remarkable series of expressions: disbelief, shock, calculation, and finally, a desperate attempt at charm. "Your father?" She straightened her designer workout top. "But you never said... I mean, all this time... Christine, why didn't you tell us?" It never seemed relevant. I took back the photo. I chose a different life when I married Tucker. A better life. Better than being Walter Collins's daughter. Lily's voice rose an octave. "Do you know what I could have... what we could have done with that connection, Mom?" Joey's voice was quiet. Why didn't you ever tell me about Grandpa? Because I wanted you to grow up valuing what truly matters. I met his eyes. Like your father did. Tucker knew who my father was, but he loved me for who I am. Lily was still staring at the invitation. So, you could get us into the ball? I have an extra invitation, I said carefully. But it's not just about getting in, Lily. It's about understanding why you're there. Of course, she said quickly, but her eyes never left the gold-embossed envelope. I completely understand. Family is everything, right? We're family. I caught Elizabeth's eye across the room. She was trying hard not to smile. Yes, I said, picking up the extra invitation. We are family. That's exactly why I'd like you and Joey to come as my guests. As Lily clutched the envelope like it was a winning lottery ticket, I thought about Tucker's words again. Time reveals everything. And sometimes timing is everything too. I can't believe we're celebrating that old man's birthday, Lily announced, dropping her designer handbag onto my couch. I mean, Tucker was what? A gym teacher. The photo of my late husband seemed to stare down from the mantel, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. We'd gathered for his birthday, a tradition I'd maintained since his passing. Dad was a physical education teacher and a farmer, Joey corrected, his voice tight, and he helped hundreds of kids. Right, Lily waved her hand dismissively. But honestly, Christine, don't you think it's time to move on? It's been 2 years. Elizabeth, who'd been arranging flowers nearby, slammed a vase down hard enough to make water splash. Some people actually value memories, Lily. Not everything expires like last season's fashion. I'm just saying, Lily continued, pulling out her phone. It's a bit provincial, like this whole setup. She gestured to the modest spread of Tucker's favourite foods I'd prepared. I mean, look at these paper plates. We could have done this at that new bistro downtown. Tucker loved eating here, I said quietly, straightening his photograph. He always said happiness tastes better at home. Well, he wouldn't have known about fine dining, would he? Lily smirked. I mean, what was the fanciest restaurant he ever ate at? Applebee's? The room went silent. Joey's face reddened, but before he could speak, our friend Judah, who'd just walked in, cleared his throat. Actually, he said, Tucker and I once had dinner at Le Bernardin in New York. He knew more about wine pairings than the sommelier. Lily's head snapped up. What? It was during one of his agricultural consulting trips, Judah continued, helping himself to some of Tucker's famous cornbread. He was advising some high-end organic farms. Man knew his stuff. Agricultural consulting? Lily turned to Joey. Your father was just a teacher. Dad consulted for several major organic farming operations, Joey said. He developed some innovative sustainable farming techniques. Mum, didn't he win some award for that? I nodded, remembering how Tucker had laughed when they'd called his name at the ceremony. He said awards were just fancy ways of saying you did what needed doing. But, Lily sputtered, looking around the modest living room. If he was so successful, why did you live like this? Like what? Elizabeth challenged. Happy? Comfortable? Not everything valuable comes with a price tag, Lily. Lily's friend Isabel, who'd been quiet until now, touched her arm. Lily, maybe we should... No. Lily stood up, her voice rising. I don't understand. If you had money, connections... I mean, look at this place. Look at how you live. It's like you're playing at being poor. We never played at anything, I said, my voice steady. We lived exactly as we chose to live. Tucker and I agreed on what mattered most. Which was what? Lily demanded. Pretending to be simple country folk when you could have been somebody? When you could have given Joey a better life? Joey stepped forward. I had the best life, Lily. Every single day I learned what really matters. Oh, please, she scoffed. What matters is success, connections, moving up in the world, like the Collins Foundation ball, that matters. Not some dead teacher's birthday party with paper plates and grocery store cake. The words hung in the air like smoke. Joey's face went pale, then flushed dark red. Elizabeth made a sound like she'd been struck, but it was Judah who spoke first. I knew Tucker for 20 years, he said quietly. He taught my kids, advised my business, and never once asked for recognition. He could have lived anywhere, done anything, but he chose to make a difference right here, where it mattered most. Well, he chose wrong, Lily snapped. And so did you, Christine, with your connections, your father's influence. That's enough, Joey's voice cut through the room like a blade. Lily, get your things, we're leaving. But now. As they left, Lily still protesting, Isabel lingered behind. I'm so sorry, she whispered. She's not usually... Yes, she is, Elizabeth said. She's exactly like this, always. After everyone had gone, except Elizabeth, who was helping clean up, I sat in Tucker's old armchair, holding his photograph. You know what Dad would say right now? Elizabeth asked, settling on the armrest. Time reveals everything, we said together, then laughed. I miss him, she said softly. Me too. I touched the invitation to the Collins Foundation ball, tucked safely in my pocket. But he also used to say that sometimes the best response to unkindness is simply to let people see themselves clearly. Is that why you invited Lily to the ball? I smiled, remembering Tucker's wisdom about timing and truth. Let's just say I think it's time for a few revelations. Mum, Elizabeth grinned, you're absolutely devious. No, I corrected her, just patient, like your father taught me to be. The photo of Tucker seemed to wink in the fading evening light, and I could almost hear his laugh. Some lessons, I thought, are worth taking time to teach. You can't seriously be wearing that to the ball, Lily said, eyeing my simple black dress as I stood in her living room. It's at least 3 seasons old. It's classic, I replied, smoothing the fabric. And it was Tucker's favourite. Of course it was, she rolled her eyes. But this isn't some country barn dance, Christine. This is the Collins Foundation ball. People who matter will be there. Joey appeared from their bedroom, adjusting his tie. Mom looks beautiful, Lily. Beautiful isn't the point, Lily paced, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. This is our chance. I mean, your chance to finally make real connections, to be somebody. We are somebody, Joey said quietly. You know what I mean? She turned to me. Christine, you have to understand. This event could change our lives. We can't afford any embarrassments. The word hung in the air like a slap. I watched my son's face tighten, saw the familiar conflict in his eyes. Actually, I said, reaching into my purse, I brought something for you. I handed Lily an envelope. She opened it, pulling out a handwritten note. Her eyes widened as she read. What is it? Joey asked. It's a personal note from Walter Collins, Lily whispered, requesting our presence at his private pre-ball reception. She looked up sharply. How did you get this? I told you I know Walter, but this is where the real networking happens. The inner circle. Her voice grew excited. Only 50 people get invited to this. The most influential people in the state. I know, I said simply. Lily's expression shifted, calculation replacing disdain. Christine, I may have been a bit harsh about your dress. Perhaps we could go shopping. I know this boutique. My dress will be fine. But the doorbell rang. Isabel stood outside, looking uncomfortable. Lily, can we talk? She glanced at me apologetically. Privately. They stepped onto the balcony. Through the glass doors, I could see Lily gesturing animatedly while Isabel shook her head. Mom, Joey touched my arm. Are you sure about all this? About what? The ball, the reception, exposing yourself to Lily's world. I know how she can be. I turned to face my son, really looking at him. He had Tucker's kind eyes, but lately they'd been shadowed with worry. Joey, do you remember what your father used to say about harvest time? He smiled slightly. That you have to wait for exactly the right moment. And what happens if you harvest too early? The crop isn't ready or too late and it rots on the vine. His eyes met mine. Mom, what are you planning? Before I could answer, Lily burst back in, Isabel trailing behind her. Christine, we need to discuss the reception. Who will be there? What should I say to Walter? Should I mention my charity work? My connections with... Just be yourself, I interrupted. She laughed that brittle laugh. Oh, Christine, you really don't understand how these things work, do you? It's all about presentation, about showing your best self. Is that different from your real self? Isabel coughed suddenly, poorly disguising a laugh. You know what I mean, Lily snapped. This isn't your little farm-to-table world where everyone pretends authenticity matters more than success. Lily, Joey warned. No, it's fine, I said. Lily's right. It is a different world, but sometimes different worlds collide in interesting ways. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I picked up my purse, that I look forward to introducing you to everyone at the reception, including Walter. About that, Lily stepped forward eagerly. I've been researching Walter Collins. Did you know he's donated millions to educational initiatives? I was thinking of mentioning my ideas about private school reform. I'm sure Dad would be interested in hearing those, I said mildly. The room went silent. Lily froze mid-gesture. What did you just say? Oh, I blinked innocently. Did I forget to mention? Walter Collins is my father. Isabel's hand flew to her mouth. Joey looked between us, understanding dawning in his eyes. Your father? Lily's voice rose to a squeak. But you said you knew him. You didn't say, all this time. Why didn't... Would it have changed anything? I asked quietly. Lily opened and closed her mouth several times, no sound emerging. Finally, she whispered, I need to sit down. Mom, Joey said softly, you're amazing. I touched his cheek gently. I learned from the best. Your father always said timing was everything. As I left their apartment, I heard Lily's voice rising hysterically behind me. What am I going to wear? What am I going to say? Oh God, what have I done? In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. The simple black dress hung perfectly, elegant and understated. Tucker would have loved it. Time reveals everything, I whispered to my reflection and smiled. The harvest was nearly ready. Hold still, Elizabeth said, adjusting my pearl necklace, Tucker's last gift before he passed. There. Perfect. The doorbell rang, and Judah's voice carried from downstairs. Ladies, the car's here. I took one final look in the mirror. The black dress still fit perfectly, the pearls gleaming against the simple fabric. Elizabeth had insisted on doing my makeup, just enough to enhance without masking. Ready to shake up some worlds? Elizabeth grinned, gathering her wrap. I'm not trying to shake anything, I protested. Just letting the truth speak for itself? She raised an eyebrow. Sure, Mom. Whatever you say. Downstairs, Judah whistled appreciatively. Tucker would have loved seeing you like this, Christine. A horn honked outside, Joey and Lily arriving in their separate car. Lily burst through the door in a flurry of designer silk and nervous energy. Christine, thank God you're not ready yet. I brought options. She thrust a garment bag at me. This Valentino would be perfect. We can't have you looking, well, you know. I glanced at the expensive dress, then back at Lily's anxious face. I'm already dressed, Lily. But, she faltered, taking in my appearance. That's the same dress from before. Christine, please, this is important. You're Walter Collins' daughter. You need to look the part. I look exactly like who I am, I said quietly. Who you are? Lily's voice rose. Who you are is the daughter of one of the most influential men in the state. Do you know how many people would kill for that position? And you're wearing... that. Joey stepped forward. Lily, enough. No, not enough. She spun to face him. Your mother has been hiding this connection our entire marriage. Do you know what we could have done with this kind of influence? The doors it could have opened? Is that why you married me? Joey asked softly. To open doors? The room went silent. Lily's face paled. Of course not, she stammered. I just meant, well, connections matter. Position matters. Looking the part matters. More than being genuine? Judah asked from his corner. Oh, please, Lily rolled her eyes. Genuine doesn't get you invited to private receptions. Genuine doesn't build networks. Genuine doesn't... Doesn't what? I interrupted. Doesn't pretend to be something it's not? Through the window, I caught sight of another car pulling up. Isabel stepped out wearing a simple but elegant dress. At least let me fix your hair, Lily pleaded. Maybe some better jewellery. Those pearls are so basic. These pearls were my last anniversary gift from Tucker, I said. He saved for months to buy them. Exactly my point, Lily threw up her hands. You were living like farmers when you could have had everything. When you could have given Joey everything. I did give Joey everything, I said, my voice firm. I gave him values, understanding of what really matters, just like my father gave me. Your father is a billionaire. My father is a man who taught me that worth isn't measured by bank accounts or social connections. I touched the pearls at my neck. Tucker understood that too. It's why I fell in love with him. The doorbell rang again. Isabel entered, then stopped short, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? She asked cautiously. No, Lily snapped. Nothing is okay. Christine is about to ruin our one chance at... At what? Joey cut in. At using her father's name for your social climbing. Lily recoiled as if slapped. Joey, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. He shook his head. You've meant every word, every snide comment, every dismissal of my family's life, and I've let it happen. We should get going, Judah said quietly. The reception starts in 40 minutes. Lily made one last desperate attempt. Christine, please, just the dress. Consider it a favor to your daughter-in-law. I met her eyes steadily. Lily, I've considered every favor you've asked, every criticism you've made, every time you've belittled my home, my life, my choices. And you know what I've realized? She swallowed hard. What? That Tucker was right. Time really does reveal everything. Elizabeth stepped forward, linking her arm through mine. Shall we go show everyone exactly who Christine Kent is? As we walked to the cars, I heard Lily whisper frantically to Isabel, This is a nightmare. All this time, I've been treating Walter Collins's daughter like some country nobody. What am I going to do? Isabel's response floated back. Maybe try treating her like a person instead of a connection. In the car, Elizabeth squeezed my hand. You okay, Mom? I touched the pearls again, thinking of Tucker's proud face when he gave them to me. You know what your father would say right now? She grinned. The harvest is almost ready. Exactly. I smiled, watching the city lights grow closer. And timing is everything. The reception hall glittered with crystal chandeliers and old money. Lily hovered nervously at my elbow as we entered, her designer dress rustling with each anxious movement. There he is, I said quietly, spotting my father across the room. Walter Collins stood tall despite his 80 years, commanding attention without effort. His eyes crinkled when he saw me, and he excused himself from a cluster of politicians and CEOs. Christine, he called out, arms wide. My favorite daughter. I'm your only daughter, Dad, I laughed, embracing him. Details, details. His eyes twinkled as he surveyed our group. And this must be Joey's wife I've heard so much about. Lily stepped forward, practically vibrating with nervous energy. Mr. Collins, I can't tell you what an honor. I mean, your work in philanthropy is just... Please, he held up a hand. Call me Walter. We're family after all. He turned to Joey. Though I'm still waiting for you to call me Grandpa, young man. Joey flushed. I'm sorry we never knew. Don't apologize, Walter said firmly. Your mother made her choices for good reasons. Speaking of which, he gestured to a distinguished-looking woman approaching us. Christine, Amanda's been asking about your sustainable farming initiative. The what? Lily's head snapped toward me. Oh, didn't you know? Amanda joined our circle. Christine's work with small farms has revolutionized organic farming practices across 3 states. We've been trying to get her to speak at our environmental summit for years. But Lily looked bewildered. She just grows vegetables in her backyard. Walter laughed. Is that what you've been telling people, Christine? Always the modest one, just like her mother. He turned to Lily. Did she ever tell you about the research grant she turned down? Harvard wanted her to head their agricultural sustainability department. Harvard? Lily's voice had risen to a squeak. Dad, I protested. That was ages ago. I chose a different path. Yes, he smiled warmly. You chose love. And looking at your children, I'd say you chose well. Across the room, I spotted Elizabeth deep in conversation with the state governor. Judah was exchanging cards with a group of business executives. And Joey. Joey was watching Lily's face with a mixture of pride and revelation. Mr. Collins? I mean, Walter, Lily stammered. I feel I should explain some things. Oh? My father's eyebrows rose slightly. What things would those be? Before Lily could respond, a photographer approached. Mr. Collins, could we get a family photo? Wonderful idea. Walter gathered us close. Christine, right here by me. Joey, Elizabeth, come along. Lily, dear, you too. As the camera flashed, I heard Lily whisper, I don't understand. All this time you could have been... Been what? I asked quietly. Someone different than who I am. More people were gathering around now. I recognized faces from magazine covers and news broadcasts, all greeting my father warmly, all stopping to ask my opinion on sustainable agriculture, education reform, community development. Christine, called out a woman in an elegant red dress. Tell them about that innovative irrigation system you developed, the one that saved the Peterson farm during last year's drought. Lily's eyes grew wider with each introduction, each revelation. She kept smoothing her expensive dress, touching her hair, trying to insert herself into conversations only to realize she was out of her depth. Your mother-in-law is quite remarkable, I overheard Amanda telling her. We've been trying to get her on our board for years, but she insists on staying hands-on with her projects. Says real change happens in the fields, not the boardroom. I didn't know, Lily said faintly. Really? Amanda looked surprised. But surely you've seen her work, the community programs, the educational initiatives, the farming cooperatives? Joey stepped in then, his voice proud. Mum never talks about her achievements. She just does the work that needs doing. Like her father, Amanda nodded toward Walter. Though I must say, Christine, you got your humility from your mother. As the evening progressed, I watched Lily's carefully constructed worldview crumbling. Every introduction, every conversation revealed another layer of the life she'd dismissed as simple and provincial. Finally, she cornered me by the champagne fountain. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice was almost accusatory. All this time, I thought. I mean, I treated you like someone who didn't matter, I supplied gently. She had the grace to flinch. I just don't understand. You could have shut me up at any time. You could have put me in my place. Why didn't you? I thought about Tucker, about the lessons we'd taught our children. Because my place isn't above or below anyone, Lily. It's exactly where I choose to be. Christine, Walter called out. The governor wants to discuss expanding your program statewide. As I turned to leave, Lily grabbed my arm. I've been horrible to you, she whispered, tears in her eyes. No, I said quietly. You've been horrible to yourself. You've been so busy looking up that you forgot to look around. I left her standing there, clutching her champagne glass, watching as the woman she'd dismissed as a simple country bumpkin walked away to help shape state policy. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply being exactly who you are. The main ballroom pulsed with music and conversation, but I found Lily alone on the terrace, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She didn't turn when I approached, just kept staring at the city lights below. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Before I could respond, Joey appeared in the doorway. There you are. Mum, Elizabeth's looking for... Lily, are you crying? Of course I'm crying, she whirled around. Your mother is Christine Collins-Kent. Do you have any idea what that means? What I've done? You mean besides treating my mother like dirt for the past 3 years? Joey's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Joey, I started, but he held up his hand. No, Mom, it's time. He turned to Lily. You know what's really ironic? If you'd bothered to actually know my mother, really know her, you would have seen how extraordinary she is, with or without her father's name. Lily dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I was trying to build something for us, Joey. Connections, opportunities. By tearing others down? He shook his head. That's not building, Lily, that's destroying. I didn't know. She gestured helplessly toward me. How was I supposed to know she was somebody? She was always somebody, Joey's voice cracked. She was my mother. She was Tucker's wife. She was the woman who built a sustainable farming network from scratch, who helped dozens of families keep their farms, who taught me that real worth isn't about what you have, but what you give. Through the glass doors, I could see Walter watching us, concern etched on his face. Elizabeth stood beside him, holding him back with a gentle hand on his arm. I can fix this, Lily said desperately. Mr. Collins, your father, he seemed to like me. Maybe if I explain... Explain what? Joey demanded. That you only respect people based on their social status. That you've spent years mocking his daughter's life choices. That's not fair. I was just what? I finally spoke. Just assuming that because I chose a simple life, I was simple? That because I didn't flaunt wealth or connections, I had none? Lily sank onto a terrace chair. I've made such a mess of everything. Yes, Joey said quietly, you have. Inside, the music swelled. I could see Judah dancing with his wife, Isabel chatting with some environmental activists. Life going on, worlds colliding and realigning. What happens now? Lily looked between us, her carefully constructed facade completely crumbled. That depends, Joey said. Are you asking because you're worried about losing access to Mom's connections, or because you finally understand what you've lost? Joey. She reached for him, but he stepped back. I need some time, he said. We need some time to figure out if there's anything real left between us. Real? She laughed bitterly. Isn't that ironic? I spent so long chasing what I thought was real. Status, connections, the right circles. And all along you had access to something genuine, I finished. You just couldn't see it through your designer glasses. A commotion from inside drew our attention. Walter was announcing the Foundation's new initiative, a partnership with my sustainable farming program to help small farms transition to organic methods. And none of this would be possible, he was saying, without the tireless work of my daughter Christine, who proved that true influence isn't about power or money, but about making a real difference in people's lives. The crowd applauded. Lily flinched at each clap. You know what Tucker would say right now? I asked her gently. She shook her head. He'd say that every harvest has its season, every truth its time. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered. Maybe not, Joey said. But Mom gives it anyway. That's who she is, who she's always been, if you'd bothered to look. Walter appeared at the terrace door. Christine, the governor's wife, has some questions about implementing the program in urban areas. Coming, Dad, I turned to Lily. You know, it's never too late to start seeing people for who they really are, including yourself. As I walked away, I heard Joey say softly to Lily, I'm staying at Mum's tonight. I need to think. Inside, Elizabeth caught my arm. You okay? I looked back at the terrace where Lily sat alone, her designer dress wrinkled, her perfect world shattered. You know what your father used to say about karma? That it's not about revenge, Elizabeth smiled. It's about balance. Exactly. I straightened my simple black dress, touched Tucker's pearls. Sometimes the greatest revelation isn't about who someone else turns out to be, but about who they've been all along, Elizabeth finished. Walter called out again, and I moved toward him, toward the future we would build, leaving Lily to contemplate the ruins of her carefully constructed illusions. Sometimes I thought, the hardest truth to face isn't about others at all. It's about ourselves. The morning dew sparkled on my tomato plants as I knelt in the garden just like I did every morning. The screen door creaked, that familiar sound that Tucker had always meant to fix but never did. Need some help? Lily's voice was hesitant, uncertain. I looked up, shielding my eyes from the sunrise. She stood awkwardly on my back porch, wearing jeans and a simple blouse instead of her usual designer outfit. "There's an extra pair of gloves by the tool shed," I said, turning back to my plants. She disappeared and returned moments later, kneeling carefully in the dirt beside me. Her movements were clumsy, unpracticed, but she watched my hands intently as I showed her how to check the tomatoes for ripeness. "Joey's still sleeping," she said quietly. He's been staying here a lot. I know. Christine, She stopped, pulled a weed, started again. "I don't know how to fix this." "Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed," I said, gently turning a tomato to check its underside. "Maybe they're meant to be rebuilt, from the ground up." The garden gate squeaked, and Elizabeth appeared with coffee cups. "Thought you might need these." She handed one to me then, after a slight pause, offered one to Lily. "Thank you," Lily whispered, accepting the cup with soil-stained hands. Elizabeth settled on the garden bench. "Dad's favourite time of day," she said. "He always said sunrise in the garden was like watching the world remember itself." "I never understood before," Lily said, looking at her dirty fingers. "Why you chose this life. Why you stayed here when you could have had everything." "I do have everything," I corrected her, picking a ripe tomato and placing it in the basket. "I have my children, my home, my work that matters. What else should I want? Status? Influence? Power?" Her laugh was hollow. "God, I sound ridiculous even saying it now." The screen door creaked again. Joey emerged, sleep-rumpled and surprised to see his wife in the garden. "There's coffee in the kitchen," Elizabeth called to him. He nodded but didn't move, just stood watching us, his expression unreadable. "I've been thinking," Lily said, carefully placing a tomato in the basket, "about what you said, about seeing people for who they really are." She looked up at Joey, "Including myself." "And?" he asked quietly. "And I don't much like who I've been." She wiped her hands on her jeans. I was so busy trying to be somebody that I forgot how to just be. The morning sun crept higher, warming the garden. A butterfly landed on the basil plants, wings glinting gold like the embossed invitation that had started all this. "You know what Tucker would say right now?" I asked, standing up and brushing off my knees. "Something about timing and truth," Elizabeth suggested. "No," I smiled. "He'd say it's time for breakfast. Who wants fresh tomatoes with their eggs?" Joey finally moved from the porch. "I'll cook," he offered. "Dad taught me his secret scramble recipe." "I'd like to learn," Lily said softly. If that's okay." Joey held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Come on. First step is getting the pan temperature just right." As they headed inside, Elizabeth helped me gather the rest of the harvest. "Think they'll make it?" she asked. "That depends on them," I said, watching through the window as Joey showed Lily how to crack eggs one-handed, the way Tucker had taught him. "On whether she can learn to value what's real instead of what glitters. Like you did," she bumped my shoulder playfully, "when you chose Dad over the society life." "I never chose one over the other," I corrected. "I chose to be authentic in both worlds. That's what your father taught me, that we don't have to choose between who we are and who we could be. We just have to be genuine in whatever world we inhabit." Inside, I could hear Lily laugh, a real laugh, not her artificial society titter, as Joey demonstrated Tucker's signature egg flip. The phone rang, and Elizabeth answered. "Morning, Grandpa?" "Yes, she's here. Garden, of course. Hold on." She held out the phone. "Dad wants to know if you'll speak at next month's agricultural conference." I took the phone, watching Lily and Joey through the window. They were working together now, moving around each other in the kitchen like they were remembering a dance they'd forgotten. "Actually, Dad," I said, "I think I'll bring someone with me. There's a lot to learn about sustainable growth, in farming and in life." Through the window, Lily caught my eye and smiled hesitantly. Her designer clothes were smudged with garden soil, her perfect manicure ruined by honest work. But somehow she looked more real than she ever had in all her polished glory. Sometimes the sweetest harvest isn't what we grow in our gardens, but what grows in our hearts when we finally let truth take root. "Breakfast is ready," Joey called. And just like that, morning bloomed full of possibility, as it always had in this kitchen, in this home, in this life I'd chosen and would choose again every single time.